So I'd like to welcome all of you, everybody, to the South Downs Poetry Festival and Dempsey and Windle Publishing's celebration of William Shakespeare on the occasion of the 457th anniversary of his probable birth and the 405th anniversary of his death. I say probable birth because everything about William Shakespeare's life and work, including his very identity as the author of his plays, has been questioned over the past 400 years, with at least 17 different spellings of his name used by Will himself and scant public records of his transactions in Elizabethan and Jacobean society. It's taken scholarship of varying quality and quite a lot of imagination in a lot of instances to construct a tentative biography of the actor and writer whose work we call Shakespearean. Almost forgotten for 200 years after his death, Shakespeare's plays were only preserved by his friends and colleagues, John Hemmings and Henry Condell, who transcribed and published them in a badly printed book, so they say, now known as the First Folio, in 1623, some 7 years after Shakespeare's death. Interest in the plays revived in the 19th century, and the question of Shakespeare's identity attracted several cranks and eccentrics, as well as respectable scholars, to propound various theories of who wrote Shakespeare. Francis Bacon and the Earl of Southampton are two candidates, both largely debunked by modern scholars. As well as the plays, many at least partly written in collaboration with other actors, Shakespeare was the author of poetry, the best known being the 154 sonnets to the so-called Dark Lady. Like so much else in Shakespeare's life, there's a mystery surrounding the identity, the true gender, and indeed the existence outside the poet's own imagination of the Dark Lady. A long poem entitled Venus and Adonis also survives, but we don't really look at that a great deal unless we're scholars. Scattered, rewritten, stolen, defaced, brutally edited and bowdlerized, or simply mislaid, copies and fragments of the First Folio have been painstakingly collected and housed in the Folger Shakespeare Library in Washington, D.C. The library now houses thousands of primary documents and copies of treatises, critics' works, and biographies connected with Shakespeare. Research and the impact of on the English language of Shakespeare's vivid metaphorical inventions and neologisms continues unabated into our own century. But tonight, we assert that the Bard of Avon was indeed the author of these wise, humane plays and lyrical poems, whose rich, imaginative use of the English language enables his words to transcend their historical context and speak to us of humanity's universal concerns, birth, life, love, and death. So we present 12 poets from among those whom we've published in recent years, to read from William Shakespeare's work and also from their own poems, their own responses to him, and also to accomplished actors, Gareth Williams and Paula Tinker, to read from the plays. And now I'll hand over to Barry Smith, director of the South Downs Poetry Festival, to add his welcome to mine. Barry, unmute if you would.
Hello everybody, and welcome, as Janice says, to this very special birthday celebration. I'm the director of the South Downs Poetry Festival. Now, what is it? Well, it's an annual rolling pop-up program that covers the whole of the South Downs National Park, and now pops up virtually as well. We put on major events in cathedrals and smaller venues like pubs and country churches, art galleries, village halls. and we're very much a festival of partnerships, tonight with Dempsey and Windle, but also with things like the Festival of Chichester and the Keats Shelley Memorial Association. Do check out our website and sign up for our newsletters. What have we got coming up? Dame Penelope Keith and Vicky Fever in Chichester Cathedral, the Poetry and Jazz Cafe with the Charlotte Glasson Trio, and lots more. So welcome from the South Downs Poetry Festival. I'm now going to take off my director's hat and put on my poet's hat to kick off the Shakespeare readings. And the first of these is Ariel's Song from the Tempest, a piece about magical change and transformation, which seems to me absolutely spot on for this evening's readings, inspired by Shakespeare. Full fathom 5 thy father lies, of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a sea change into something rich and strange. Sea nymphs hourly ring his knell. Hark, now I hear them, ding dong bell. So kicking us off there from the Tempest. Moving on to my own writing now, my own poem, which is published in Acumen, was inspired by sorting out my book collection, which, as things do, had got out of hand. And I discovered a philosophy book from university by the French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre. And somehow this got mixed up with Hamlet while I was listening to a concert in Chichester Cathedral near the Arundel tomb. Being and nothingness, lines on sorting a book collection. To be or not to be, that is the question which has bedeviled our existential angst since William Shakespeare, or was it Thomas Kidd, crystallized our dizzying predicament. And so, Jean-Paul, here's the rub, for I weigh your fate like a bare bodkin in my hand, poised betwixt the suffocating dark or temporary reprieve to rest amongst the wriggling heroes of the pen, to hold, as 'twere, the mirror up to man. Alas, poor Sartre, liberated one day from sedately curated shelves of academe, between black coffee in the campus bar and metaphysical poetry seminar, left bank arbiter of hawks and handsaws, embodies for a while that cool ennui, somnambulantly drifts through long neglect to sleep, perchance to dream, in dusty seclusion, king of shreds and patches, bounded in a nutshell of infinite space. By indirections, we find directions out. Your magnum opus, fretful high-wire act, awaits the determinant curtain call. But the rest, as the man said, is silence. And now it's my pleasure to welcome our distinguished guest from the world of theatre and film, Gareth Williams. He's starred in the West End, he's been in the recent film of Peterloo, he's acted with the English Shakespeare Company, he's had a #1 single with the Flying Pickets. So Gareth, over to you.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank. And his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything.
Thank you, Gareth. That was great. I love hearing that soliloquy read so expressively. Thank you. Now we're going to continue with one of our poets, Mary Baker Muir, and she's going to, well, let her tell us what she's going to do. Mary, unmute, please.
Yep, I'm going to read, first of all, Shakespeare's Sonnet 33, one of my absolute favourites, and then a little something by myself. Full many a glorious morning have I seen, flatter the mountain tops with sovereign eye, kissing with golden face the meadows green, gilding pale streams with heavenly alchemy. Anon permit the basest clouds to ride with ugly rack on his celestial face, and from the forlorn world his visage hide, stealing unsteal to west with this disgrace. Even so, my sun one early morn did shine, with all triumphant splendour on my brow, but out, alack, he was but 1 hour mine, the region cloud hath masked him from me now. Yet him for this my love no whit disdaineth, sons of the world may stain when heaven's sun staineth. And then a rather more modest piece by me about the longed for return every September. Return. House martins are back to dance their blistering jigsaw through the sycamore's familiar sky. Kiss, 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 house martins whisper me, forage tucked behind the hopper, flick and flicker, blasting autonomous to message summer over an egg-white sky. Happiness comes fast and monotone, an orchestra of black-tipped streaks spinning below the sacrificial Sussex down to whisper another fledgling future.
Thank you very much, Mary. I love both of those. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from my other half, Dónall, and I can't get out of the way.
You don't have to.
There you are, move in.
Friends of mine were approaching their 50th wedding anniversary, and they asked me to write a poem for them. And they were telling me that they were childhood sweethearts. And they were telling them that when they first moved in, they hadn't got a stick of furniture, they slept on bare boards, and the only thing they had nothing except each other and an illustrated Shakespeare sonnet. And so this is called My Love is as a Fever, Longing Still. All that long hot summer through, I shared a summer cold with you that seemed to last forever. Whether sharing the same germs, dreams, bacteria, or whatever, it seemed to bind us so very close together. If this was love, it couldn't get no better. And all my heart could say, even to this day, is bless you, bless you, bless you. He died a couple of days before the big celebration and of a heart attack, and she died days later. So I read it at their funeral instead of their big party. And this is my sister, imbibing Shakespeare into me. It's called Sister Hamlet. Oh, I still remember your Hamlet, the best production I ever saw. You home from school, wrapping yourself in the crimson curtain of our living room and stabbing yourself in the iris and crying, a rat, and how something or other was rotten, and bringing the curtain down upon your dying, and annoying our mother, critical of your overheated performance, she standing as like a bad review scampering. I will remember your Shakespeare to my dying day, your eyes wild and your hair flying, and how with an entire cast of you acted it all out to my open and gasping mouth, drinking you in with my thirsty mind. Shakespeare comes startlingly alive, me peppered with beauty and spittle. Oh, Sister Hamlet, I still live in the wonder of your telling. On first looking into Mr. Shakespeare, I step out of the here and now, slip into the space between second and second. Time scowls, oh, don't tell me I've lost them again. Invisible to all in my window seat. I again, that little boy, letting the world go by, hidden in a heartbeat, lost in the tempest of words, caught between the thresholds of worlds upon worlds. Come to me with a thought, the big black book calls. Your thoughts I cleave to, I whisper to its words. I all at once, my own Prospero and Ariel, set free from the knotted pine of dyslexia, thanks to Mr. Shakespeare's spell. Best production of Shakespeare I ever saw, beside my sister doing Hamlet, was, it's called If You Tickle Us. The moon listens intently to the open air production of The Merchant of Venice. In Venice, this delicious summer's night hemmed in by houses where we discover that the quality of mercy is not strained. As a couple upstairs come home and proceed to make loud, long, passionate love, it droppeth like another couple scream and fight as windows smash, plates crash, the gentle rain from heaven. Ah, Katsunkolo, and throws his clothes out the now broken window upon the earth below, as a gondola goes by in a mist with an atrocious tourist version of O Sole Mio, as another window lights up and a telly bellows a dubbed-in gangster shootout. Ah, va fancy! We are enthralled with, delighted and enraptured, not only with the splendor that is Shakespeare, but also with the real-life drama of this gentle Italian night and of how we got our pound of flesh. Thank you.
Dónall, that's Shakespeare, and that's also Dónall. Thank you very much. Now our next reader is Richard Williams. Yay. Richard, would you like to unmute?
Yes. Thank you. Good evening. I come to Shakespeare from a slightly different angle. My father was a huge Shakespeare fan, to the extent that for many family birthdays, from I think the age of about 8, we would go on a surprise trip where we always seemed to end up in Stratford. I wrote a haiku about one of those trips. It's got a title, On Being Taken to Watch Akira Kurosawa's Japanese version of Macbeth for my 12th birthday, when all I wanted to do was go to the football. Deceit and hubris leads to lengthening speeches. Everybody dies. I did learn to enjoy Shakespeare partly through Kurosawa's time and films, and also other trips to the RSC and elsewhere. As for Shakespeare, he probably played football when he was young. He does mention it in a couple of plays. In the Comedy of Errors, Dromio says, "Am I so round with you as you with me, that like a football you do spurn me thus? You spurn me hence, and he will spurn me hither. If I last in this service, you must cast me in leather." However, football in Shakespeare's time was very different to how it is now. In a 17th century book, Philip Stubbs described it as a friendly kind of fight. Sometimes their necks are broken, sometimes their backs, sometimes their legs, sometimes their arms, sometimes one part thrust out of joint, sometimes another, sometimes their noses gush out with blood, sometimes their eyes start out. Apparently, more people died playing football than died through sword fights or archery. No wonder it was banned. Anyway, I'll finish with Sonnet 50, which seems quite a reasonable fit with my childhood experience. I know it's obviously about separation and is followed by Sonnet 51, which is about the return journey, but it kind of works with my experiences. Sonnet 50. How heavy do I journey on the way, when what I seek my weary travels end, doth teach that ease and that repose to say, thus far the miles are measured from thy friend. The beast that bears me, tired with my woe, plods dully on to bear that weight in me, as if by some instinct the wretch did know his rider loved not speed, being made from thee. The bloody spur cannot provoke him on, that sometimes anger thrusts into his hide, which heavily he answers with a groan, more sharp to me than spurring to his side. For that same groan doth put this in my mind, my grief lies onward and my joy behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I never thought of Shakespeare and football in the same breath.
That's obviously why the Super League collapsed.
Thank you very much. And we're going to move on now to Lara. Lara Theis, please.
My one, so I've got a poem and then 3 little pieces as well. The first one's called Reading Shakespeare by the Lakeside. I am alone today. That is, I'm not really alone. What I mean is, I've got the lake to myself, sharing only with a handful of dark feathered ducks that look like preachers with their white collars, their stretched out wings. And I've got a dog-eared copy of the Tempest, so in a way I've got him too, Bill, as I call him affectionately, that marvelous dream weaver whose legacy is enshrined in our language. Between him and the chattering ducks, I have all the company I need. And the second part is, so I did Blackout Poetry with 3 soliloquies from famous plays. So in case you don't know, Blackout Poetry is when a poet takes a piece of writing, crosses out a majority of the existing text and just leaves visible the words that comprise the poem. So I did this one for Hamlet, the big to be or not to be speech. To be a sea, to sleep more, to say that in that sleep, dreams may coil. Life must pause for so long that no traveler will fly to other cowards or regard their current name. And the next one is Romeo and Juliet. That's when Romeo is waiting under the balcony. Soft light is envious, the moon already pale. It is my answer, I am the fairest. I return the brightness to shame those stars. Her eyes were not the night. Oh, that I were. And then finally, the last one is from Midsummer Night's Dream. at the end when Puck talks to the audience. I am like unearned luck, the serpent, a liar. Give me your friend's gentle wonder, but make all things plain. You would know this beauty and this man, rough, vile, grisly, coming first by night. As she fled bloody, I grew brave, found his blade. All the rest remain at large. Thank you.
Oh, those Blackout poems are really great. You must try that. That's lovely, a lovely idea. Thank you very much, Laura. Now we're going to change the atmosphere a little bit, I think, because we're going to go to John Wheeler, who has a couple of soliloquies of his own, which he's collaborated with Shakespeare upon, I believe. John.
Well, the first one is called Writing on Water. Ink loses its soliloquy. I'll start that again. Ink loses its solidity in line, and with each touch, the pattern is less certain. Ripples and reflections blur the words, so every day it's harder to recall the slip and flow of things that went before to beach us at this place. Each soft daily drip of moment wears the crisp hard angles, edged extremities. And those we knew in sharp relief in all their angers, tide-swept struggling and embittered tears, become as thin as crystal dewdrops on summer evening grass. Good father, yes, he was. And she was kind, I always heard it so. The stories that they told. Although I don't remember them the way I did. And they were good at something once. Yes, I must look it up. But then I never do. Instead, unshaped in old grey coat and hood, I chant goodbye and pull the street door wide and write my way with footsteps on a street, and sometimes turn to watch them all dissolve into the rain. The Austin Allegro, if you remember it, was the worst car ever made, but it was mine. It was my first car. And so this is Allegro Fine. My Allegro, first and only car in Renard gold whose flecks outshone the sun. A joy, a bulwark against the wayward bus and certain train and all the vagaries of weather sent to sweep a London street. A pride it was, mine own though small enough. It sent me travelling thoughtless roads apace, a prince of men. This Austin was all mine. And so I drove, unheeding of my fate, not knowing then that misery could be great. For there, the white van man did sally forth, with t-shirt short and half a can of coke. Oft times do I descry his brethren horde upon the Walworth Road and Southwark Bridge. But now came he, with passing fury out from some small side road hid between the trees, and ripped my car untimely from the road. I clambered from the wreck in fear and dread. Oh, wounded, sadly twisted was my car, while his white beast had suffered but a scratch. I stroked and stilled the quiet roof with love. Rough-voiced recovery men did force and drag the shattered frame upon their greasy truck, and it was gone, no more to be my bride. And then, to insult further, rubbing bitter salt into a gaping new-made wound, the man from Norwich Union did then decide to offer me but £50. Long gone now, my ancient noble car. But sometimes I do look above to see Allegro there in all its majesty.
Oh, John. Oh, I've got tears in my eyes after that.
Yes.
I don't quite know what they're from.
About Shakespeare.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to continue with Jenna. Jenna Plewes, would you like to unmute, please, and read for us?
Oh, John, it's hard to follow you. That was amazing. And actually, this does follow on in a way. Uranus has got 27 moons, and 25 of them are named after Shakespearean characters. So I wrote this. The naming of moons. Titania, Oberon, fleet-footed Puck and Ariel, Portia, Cordelia, long-lost Perdita, Miranda, Prospero, misshapen Caliban, love-broken Desdemona, Juliet, Ophelia. Your moonstruck names spin threads in space, circling the Greek god of the sky. Your voices drift beyond the galaxies, songs and stories, stardust memories. We cannot come to meet you on your moons, or go back through the centuries and wait to see you first step off the page. And yet we know ourselves in you, walk in your shoes. We feel midsummer's magic, dream your dreams. We've been in love and out of love and been deceived. We've known despair, been driven to the edge and then pulled back. But you scale peaks and plumb the depths we only tiptoe past. And the second one is The Second Best Bed Speaks. And we know that Shakespeare left his second best bed to his wife. I was their privacy, their playground, a small, close-curtained world of sighs, soft words, and foolishness. Rustle of nightclothes sliding to the floor, tangle and tumble of limb with limb, skin against skin, lip on lip. Place your fingers on my carved oak frame. Stroke the mirror polish of my secrecy. Listen to my centuries of silence. Feel yielding featherbed and wool. Loving was here, bedding, birthing, and dying. I held their joys and sorrows. I knew them best. And Sonnet 116 we had at my daughter's wedding. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love also's not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. They were great. I love the second best bed, remembering everything happening, and
yeah,
your moons were amazing, and that is a lovely sonnet too.
It is, isn't it? I think that's my favorite.
Really beautiful. Thank you very much. And now we're going to hear from Simon. Simon Williams, please.
Hi, thanks very much. I'm going to start with Sonnet 14, and I picked this one basically because it has the word astronomy in it, which I which rather attracted me, though in the way that Shakespeare uses it, I think it's more astrology than astronomy. Sonnet 14. Not from the stars do I my judgment pick, and yet methinks I have astronomy, but not to tell of good or evil luck, of plagues, of dearths or seasons' quality. Nor can I fortune to brief minutes tell, pointing to each his thunder, rain and wind, or say with princes if it shall go well, by oft predict that I in heaven find. But from thine eyes my knowledge I derive, and constant stars, in them I read such art as truth and beauty shall together thrive, if from thyself to store thou wouldst convert. Or else of thee this I prognosticate, thy end is truth's and beauty's doom and date. I decided I'd have a go at writing the storyline of the film Shakespeare in Love and putting it into a sonnet, which sort of works. See what you think. Shakespeare in Love. Let's start with young Will Shakespeare, jobbing hack, who sells the same play twice with no word written. Romance is what he wants, an inside track on how and why his heroine is smitten. Then there's Viola, early theatre fan, so wants to cheer on stage, not from the stalls. Can't get around the revel master's ban, auditions anyway, which takes some balls. Our Will's no dolt, can tell a woman's shape, asks her to stay for special study sessions. And once in bed, his storyline reshapes to make a passion from an indiscretion. So never was a play more brilliant than this Viola and her William. And finally, since this is a celebration, I thought we ought to have a banquet, really. This is a sort of menu for a Shakespearean banquet. And it comes from a friend of mine, Mark Woodward. I said I was going to write something along these lines. And on Facebook, he said, "Have you seen the menu? What sonnet?" So I thought, right, I'd take it from there. Shakespearean banquet. To start, Hamlet, a very small slice of ham, with a garnish of mustard and cressida. The flaming of the stew of lamb from the cookbook of Burger King Lear. Main courses, a Midsummer Night's Bream with a Julius Caesar salad, a sauce of Shylocks in cream on a merchant of venison roulade. Much ragout about mutton, with more than a pound of meat. Cow pie for Falstaffian gluttons, and bubble, bubble, toil and squeak. Desserts. Have what you like, as you like it. All's well that ends well in a banquet. Thank you.
Oh, it was great. And you managed to rhyme them as well. I'm so jealous. So good. Thank you. Now, Georgia, can we hear from you next, please?
Hi there.
Hello.
Very short. It's only 6 lines, and it's based on the, I think it's the prologue or the introduction to Romeo and Juliet. And this is called Lockdown Easing in Verona. Two households, if both alike in dignity, can now meet up outside. Don't forget, civil hands must be clean before and after mutiny. Thank you.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Fantastic sharing this lovely evening with you all. Absolutely a rare treat. So if we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. That was Puck's apology from the end of Midsummer Night's Dream, and I just wanted to borrow that and get my apology from him in first before my pieces. So here they come. The first of these is a tribute, my tribute to Shakespeare. And one fact before I read it might be helpful to note is that his father, John, was in fact a prominent figure in Stratford, a businessman. And one of his activities, of several activities, was that of glove maker, quite an important trade in those days. So this is this is called How, simply called How. How, Will? Oh, how was it that you knew us all so well? You, the country boy, the glovemaker's son from nowhere, Backwater Bill from sleepy Stratford. Wasn't that what they first thought of you, those other writers? Before the ink was dry, they weren't scoffing any longer. And was it there in not so sleepy Stratford, workshop making gloves, that finger by finger you first learned to turn us inside out, to reveal our inner fabric, our hopes, despairs, our jealousies and secret dreams, rough, misshapen, flawed, mistaken, coming apart at the seams? And where did you find the mirror, Will? The perfect glass to show us as we are, troubled and tormented, yet still wondering at the stars? And how was it that you knew us all so well, every man and every woman, every struggling soul and spirit, what it means to be here, to be human? And oh, the star-crossed lovers, the power-mad and ruthless kings, how was it that you knew us all, that you knew everything? And how is it that what you showed us still touches us today? It seems we've moved on, we've changed, of course, in this most sophisticated age. But truth be told, you're still with us, and your text still burns upon the page, and we're still captive, still listening, amazed, and we're still pictured in your gaze. Yes, yes, we're still standing on your stage. Thank you. The second and final piece is my attempt to capture the spirit of a intense Shakespeare soliloquy, a Macbeth or a Hamlet. I can't write like Shakespeare in iambic pentameter, but this is an attempt to capture the feeling of a soliloquy. So this is simply called Counting Beans. Ha! What's in a life that's worth a bean, and we that live it, what makes us more than mere machines going through the motions? It's the inner life that makes us real, what we know and think and feel. The journey of the spirit like a shining wheel, rolling out the true measure of our days. What's really in a life that's worth a bean? Not the daily grind, the mind-numbing routine, not the waste, the ugliness that makes you want to scream of people trapped in lives they simply do not mean. This dubious collection of flesh and bones is just a frail frame, a flimsy lampshade hung about the inner flame. When we are lost and broken, shipwrecked, shattered, the enduring fire within is all that matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was great.
Paula.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You don't write as well as Shakespeare because nobody does, but you pretty well got the gist. The tone, the gist. Excellent, lovely. Now we're going to move on to Paula Tinker, who is Gareth's other half. So Paula is also an actress, and Paula, I think you're going to read one of the female parts in
I'm going to read Portia. Actually, No, I just want to make sure that you know that Gareth is my other half.
Oh, right.
Okay, that's all right then. I am playing Portia after all. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His sceptre shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the heart of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power doth then show likest gods when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice, none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer doth teach us all to render the deeds of mercy. I have spoke this much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which, if thou follow, this strict court of Venice must needs give sentence against the merchant there.
Thank you, Paula. That is such a strong speech and you rendered it so strongly. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to hear from Claudia. We've only got 2 more people to hear from. What a shame. I'm so enjoying this. But our last but one reader is Claudia Court.
Good evening.
Yeah, there you are.
I'm going to read a sonnet and then a poem of my own. The sonnet is Sonnet 61, which I absolutely love. It really affirms that the green-eyed monster was alive and kicking 400 years ago, just as much as today. Is it thy will, thy image should keep open my heavy eyelids to the weary night? Dost thou desire my slumber should be broken, while shadows, like to thee, do mock my sight? Is it thy spirit that thou send'st from thee, so far from home into my deeds to pry, to find out shames and idle hours in me, the scope and tenor of thy jealousy? Oh no, thy love, though much, is not so great. It is my love that keeps mine eye awake, mine own true love that doth my rest defeat, to play the watchman ever for thy sake. For thee watch I, whilst thou dost wake elsewhere, from me far off, with others all too near. And so the poem that I've written, we don't really know how Shakespeare died, other than that he'd had a fair few drinks beforehand, and he managed to pass away on roughly the same day as he was born, April the 23rd, today. So I've imagined instead how he may have wanted his death to be, with a poem called When the Time Comes. The heat turns your cheek pink, lights the dark as flame spits from dampened logs in the rough-edged grate, hissing above sighs of wind that lean down the chimney, yearning for shelter from the pitch of night. You raise a glass, deep damson red liquid, quivering with baubles of firelight. You drink to the life you've lived, the adventures shared, and you close your eyes till you've disappeared. Thank you.
That's very moving, Claudia. I could just see poor old Shakespeare sitting there and fading quietly away. With a drink in his hand, though, which is more than most of us have, unfortunately. But thank you very much. That was lovely. And now our final reader is Timothy Adès. Timothy, could we have you reading for us, please?
Yes, hello. John of Gaunt, a great prince, a great warrior, an old man. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself against infection and the hand of war. This happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea, which serves it in the office of a wall or as a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happier lands. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, this nurse, this teeming womb of royal kings, feared by their breed and famous by their birth, renowned for their deeds as far from home, for Christian service and true chivalry, as is the sepulchre in stubborn Jewry of the world's ransom, Blessed Mary's Son. This land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land, dear for her reputation through the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it, like to a tenement or pelting farm. England, bound in with the triumphant sea, whose rocky shore beats back the envious siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame. That England, with inky blots and rotten parchment bonds, that England that was wont to conquer others, hath made a shameful conquest of itself. Oh, would the scandal vanish with my life? How happy then were my ensuing death. And I follow that with this book from Dempsey and Windle. It's called Loving by Will. And the picture on the front is done by Janice herself, at least the color is. And what it is, this book, I've taken all the 154 sonnets and rewritten them on the facing page without using the letter E. So here is my version of Sonnet 107. Not my misgivings, nor this vast world's soul, clairvoyant, musing on futurity, can bring my loving span within control, in pawn to prison of mortality. Now mortal moon has known its black occlusion. Sad augurs mock old words of doom miscast. Doubts put on crowns, abjuring all confusion. Orchards flaunt fruits pacific, conflicts past. My darlings blooming in this balmy day. What of old Dis? I'm not afraid of him. I'll last by my poor rhyming anyway, whilst Dis shall bully folk, too dumb, too dim. And this, your tumulus, shall long surpass vain tyrants' coats of arms and tombs of brass.
Timothy, wonderful choice of speech as well. Shakespeare knew Brexit was coming, didn't he? Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. I'd like everybody to unmute. And I can't unmute you. You unmute yourselves. I would like to say to everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you to everybody who read, and I'm going to give you the list. Barry Smith, Gareth Williams, Mary Baker Muir, Dónall Dempsey, Richard Williams, Laura Theis, John Wheeler, Jenna Plewes, Simon Williams, Georgia Hilton, Jeremy Loynes, Paula Tinker, Claudia Court, and last but certainly not least, Timothy Adès. And thank you for being a fantastic audience, everybody. Can we have a clap for everybody who's here, please?